Hello and welcome! Are you ready to improve your English with a story that's easy to follow? Today I've got a great one for you about a young woman who finds what she thinks is the perfect apartment. But as she soon finds out, her quick decision was a big mistake. This story is perfect for practicing your listening and picking up some important everyday vocabulary. Here's how we'll do it. First, we'll listen to the story all the way through. Then, we'll break down the new words together. And finally, we'll listen to the story again to see how much more you understand. Ready? Let's get started. My name is Clara, and just last year, I made a mistake I'll never forget. It was such an exciting and hopeful time in my life. I'd just started a new job in a bustling city, and after months of saving, I was finally ready to move out of my parents' house. I'd been dreaming about the feeling of independence for so long. My apartment hunt started online. I spent hours every single night scrolling through websites, staring at pictures of countless empty rooms, and imagining my life in each one. Some were too expensive, others were too small, and a few were just too far from my new job. I was starting to get a little discouraged, worrying that I'd never find the right place. Then, one evening, I saw it. The listing had these beautiful photos of a bright, sunny apartment with huge windows and polished wooden floors. The description called it a charming one-bedroom in a vibrant neighborhood. But the best part? The price. It was surprisingly affordable, much cheaper than anything else I'd seen in that area. It seemed almost too good to be true. In all my excitement, I totally ignored that little voice in my head whispering, "Wait, why is it so cheap?" I immediately called the number on the listing. A man with a hurried voice, the landlord, answered. He told me tons of people were interested and I should come see it as soon as possible. He said he had a viewing in 1 hour and if I wanted a chance, I needed to be there. Feeling the pressure, I rushed over to the address. The building was a little older than it looked in the photos, but I didn't really mind. The landlord, a man named Mr. Gable, gave me a quick tour. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, and as he unlocked the door, I felt this rush of excitement. It looked exactly like the pictures. The living room was filled with late afternoon light, the bedroom was cozy, and the kitchen, while small, seemed perfect for me. "It's a great place," Mr. Gable said, tapping his foot impatiently. "I've got 2 other people who want to sign the lease tonight, so you need to decide quickly." I felt so pressured. I hadn't checked the water pressure in the shower, I hadn't sniffed the closets for that weird, musty smell, I hadn't even asked about the neighbors. All I could think about was the beautiful light and that low price. I was so scared of losing this perfect apartment. So I made my decision right then and there. "I'll take it," I said, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. An hour later, I'd signed the lease and paid the deposit. I was officially a renter. Move-in day was a week later. My dad helped me carry boxes up the 3 flights of stairs, and by the end of the day, I was exhausted but so happy. As I stood in the middle of my new living room, surrounded by boxes, I just smiled. This was my home, my own space. That first night, as I was settling in, I heard a faint thud from the apartment above me. I just shrugged it off, probably just the neighbor dropping something. But the next night, the noise was louder. It sounded like heavy stomping, back and forth, back and forth. Then I heard muffled voices, angry and loud. It went on for hours. I could barely sleep. The next morning, I was exhausted. I thought, okay, maybe they just had a bad night. I was wrong. The noise became a part of my daily life. Every evening, the stomping would start. Every night, the arguments would echo through my ceiling. It felt like I was living directly below a bowling alley. The walls were paper thin. I could hear their TV, their music, every single word of their fights. After a week of sleepless nights, I knew I had to do something. I went upstairs and knocked on my neighbor's door. A man with tired eyes opened it. I politely introduced myself and explained that the noise was really loud in my apartment. He just stared at me, then said, "We live here, we're allowed to walk around," and closed the door in my face. I was shocked and so upset. And the problems didn't stop there. A few days later, I noticed a strange, musty smell in the bathroom. I looked under the sink and saw a dark, wet spot on the wall. A pipe was leaking, slowly, drip by drip. Then the kitchen faucet started to drip, a constant, annoying sound that joined the chorus of noises in my apartment. I called Mr. Gable, my landlord, and explained the noise problem and the leaks. He was completely dismissive. "Neighbors are always a gamble," he said about the noise. "I'll send someone to look at the pipes next week." Well, next week came and went, but nobody showed up. The musty smell got stronger. I called Mr. Gable again and again. Each time he had an excuse. "The plumber is busy," he'd say, or "I'm waiting for a part to arrive." It became pretty clear he had no intention of fixing anything. My dream apartment had turned into a total nightmare. I was constantly sleep-deprived from the noise. The endless dripping sound was like a form of torture, and the musty smell was starting to make me feel sick. I dreaded coming home from work. My excitement was gone, replaced by this deep, heavy feeling of regret. I finally understood why the apartment was so cheap. It had serious hidden problems and a landlord who just didn't care. Mr. Gable knew that once someone signed the lease, they were trapped. The worst of it came one Tuesday night. I had a really important presentation at work the next day and desperately needed a good night's sleep. But of course, that was the night my upstairs neighbors decided to have a huge party. The music was so loud, my windows were literally vibrating. People were shouting and laughing. It sounded like a herd of elephants was dancing on my ceiling. At 2 a.m., I just couldn't take it anymore. I was in tears, so angry and frustrated. I put my pillow over my head, but the bass from the music went right through it. That was the moment. My heart sank as I finally admitted it to myself. I had made a big, expensive mistake. My rush to get the perfect apartment had been my downfall. The next morning, after maybe an hour of sleep, I gave a terrible presentation at work. I was unfocused and completely exhausted. That was the last straw. I decided I had to get out of that apartment no matter what it cost. Breaking the lease was difficult and expensive. Mr. Gable was not happy and made me pay a huge penalty. But the moment I moved my last box out of that horrible apartment, I felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost made me cry. I was free. I ended up in a smaller, slightly more expensive apartment a few blocks away. But before I signed this lease, I did everything I should have done the first time. I visited the apartment 3 different times, once in the evening just to check for noise. I actually talked to the other tenants in the building. I checked every faucet and every outlet. I looked into every single closet. I took my time. That experience taught me such a valuable lesson about making big decisions. Sometimes when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. It's so important to look beyond the surface and not let excitement or pressure rush you. Taking the time to really investigate, to ask questions, and to listen to your gut feeling can save you from a world of trouble. My wrong choice cost me money and my peace of mind, but it gave me a piece of wisdom I'll carry with me forever. Never rush into a decision, especially one that shapes your daily life. The right choice is always worth waiting for. If you're enjoying this story and want more lessons to help you improve your English, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. It really helps us create more content just for you. All right, let's look at some of the important vocabulary and phrases from the story. Getting these words down will really help your English comprehension and speaking skills. 1. Bustling. This word means a place is full of busy, energetic, and noisy activity. In the story, Clara says, "I had just started a new job in a bustling city." Think of a busy market on a Saturday morning. It's bustling with shoppers. You could also say, New York City is known for its bustling streets. 2. Affordable. This is a great word that simply means not expensive or cheap enough to buy. In the story, but the best part was the price. It was surprisingly affordable. You might say, I need to find a more affordable car. Or, eating at home is usually more affordable than going out to a restaurant. 3. Too good to be true. This is a common expression. If something seems too good to be true, it's so good that you feel suspicious about it. In the story, it seemed almost too good to be true. For example, the job offer had a huge salary and lots of vacation time. It felt too good to be true. Be careful of online deals that seem too good to be true. They're often scams. 4. Lease. A lease is a legal contract you sign to pay money to use a building or a car for a certain amount of time. In the story, an hour later, I had signed the lease and paid the deposit. You should always read a lease very carefully before you sign it. Also, breaking a lease early can cost you a lot of money. 5. Settling in. This phrasal verb means to start feeling comfortable and relaxed in a new place, like a new home or a new job. In the story, that first night as I was settling in, I heard a faint thud. It takes a few weeks for a new pet to start settling in. Someone might ask you, how are you settling in to your new role at work? 6. Shrugged it off. When you shrug something off, you treat it like it isn't important or not a problem. You dismiss it. In the story, I shrugged it off. It was probably just the neighbor dropping something. For example, she made a mean comment, but he just shrugged it off. A coach might tell their team to shrug off a loss and focus on the next game. 7. Paper-thin walls. This is an idiom. If a building has paper-thin walls, the walls are very thin, so you can hear everything through them. In the story, the walls were paper-thin. I could hear their television. You might complain, I can't get any sleep. This hotel has paper-thin walls. It's hard to have privacy when you have paper-thin walls. 8. Musty. This describes a smell that is stale, damp, and a little moldy. It's not a pleasant smell. In the story, I hadn't looked inside the closets to see if there was a musty smell. Old books in a basement often have a musty smell. You might say, we need to open a window to get rid of that musty odor. 9. Dismissive. If someone is dismissive, they act like something or someone is not important or not worth their time. In the story, he was very dismissive. For example, when I tried to share my idea, my boss was dismissive and didn't really listen. She has a dismissive attitude towards anyone who disagrees with her. 10. Sleep deprived. This is exactly what it sounds like. You're suffering because you haven't had enough sleep. In the story, I was constantly sleep deprived from the noise. New parents are often very sleep deprived. Being sleep deprived makes it hard to concentrate. 11. Regret. Regret is that feeling of sadness you have about a mistake you made or something you wish had happened differently. In the story, my excitement had been replaced by a deep sense of regret. Someone might say, I have a deep regret about not traveling more when I was younger. She expressed her regret for the trouble she caused. 12. My heart sank. This is another great idiom. You say, my heart sank to describe a sudden feeling of sadness, disappointment, or bad news. In the story, my heart sank as I finally admitted to myself I had made a big, expensive mistake. You could say, when I realized I'd lost my wallet, my heart sank. My heart sank when I saw the rejection letter. 13. The last straw. This refers to the final problem in a series of problems that makes you lose your patience and finally do something about the situation. In the story, that was the last straw. I decided I had to get out of that apartment. For example, he was always late, but forgetting my birthday was the last straw. After many travel delays, the airline losing my luggage was the last straw. 14. Take your time. This phrase means to do something slowly and carefully without rushing. In the story, I took my time. A teacher might say, "There's no hurry, please take your time on the test." When you're learning something new, it's important to take your time. 15. Look into something. This phrasal verb means to investigate or examine a situation or problem. In the story, Clara uses it literally, "I looked into every closet," but it more commonly means to investigate. For example, the police are looking into the cause of the fire. You could also say, "Thanks for telling me about this problem. I will look into it right away." Excellent work! Now that you've learned 15 new words and phrases, let's listen to the story one more time. See how much more of it you can understand now. Really listen for that new vocabulary. Here we go again. And there you have it. You've just finished a complete English lesson. Great job! You practiced your listening, you practiced your reading, and you learned 15 new words and phrases you can start using in your daily conversations. Learning with stories is one of the most fun and effective ways to improve your English. Keep practicing every day. The more you listen and read, the faster you'll learn. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more English stories. We'll see you in the next one.